What if we learned human history in the wrong order? What if religion came before farming? And what if Stone Age humans lived in a world far more complex than we ever imagined? That is exactly why Göbekli Tepe is not just another archaeological site. It is a place that challenges one of the most basic ideas in history books. Göbekli Tepe is located about 15 kilometers northeast of Şanlıurfa, in southeastern Turkey, on the Germish mountain range. What we see there today is not just a group of old stones. It is a site with large, carefully planned structures built at an incredibly early date. The mound covers around 9 hectares, and its elevated position overlooking the plain suggests that this was not a random location. It seems to have been chosen deliberately. The story of Göbekli Tepe is remarkable not only because of its age, but also because its true importance was overlooked for a long time. The site was first surveyed in the 1960s, but it was mistaken for a medieval cemetery. The real turning point came in the 1990s. In 1994, the area was reevaluated, and in 1995, excavations began. What researchers uncovered showed that the site was far older and far more important than anyone had expected. In other words, Göbekli Tepe was in front of us for years, but the right questions were asked too late. What makes Göbekli Tepe extraordinary is not ordinary stonework, but monumental circular and oval enclosures filled with massive T-shaped limestone pillars. Some of these pillars rise up to about 5.5 meters tall. Even more striking, several of them are decorated with carvings of wild animals, such as foxes, snakes, and birds, along with human-like details that suggest belts or garments. This makes it clear that this was not simply a place to live. It was a place with symbolic meaning. For a long time, the usual story of civilization sounded simple. First, humans developed farming, then they built villages, and only later created religion and monumental architecture. But Göbekli Tepe seemed to challenge that sequence. Here we have strong evidence that hunter-gatherer groups may have built large stone structures at a very early date, before fully developed farming societies appeared. That is why Göbekli Tepe is not just an old site. It sits at the center of one of the biggest debates about how human society first became organized. One of the biggest questions is what Göbekli Tepe was actually used for. For many years, many researchers interpreted it as a ritual site, possibly even a mountain sanctuary. That idea comes from the monumental architecture and the lack of clear signs of ordinary domestic life in the earliest excavated areas. So the real mystery of Göbekli Tepe is not only how old it is, but why people came together there in the first place. The people who built Göbekli Tepe were not city dwellers or state societies in the modern sense. They were part of the early Neolithic world. But that is exactly what makes the site so fascinating. These people were not as simple as we often imagine. Quarrying and moving huge stones, planning large enclosures, creating symbolic carvings, and gathering around a shared purpose all required a high degree of coordination. Göbekli Tepe suggests that human thought and social organization may have become far more complex much earlier than once believed, because the site raises more questions than answers. Who organized the construction of these monuments? Why were these structures built? What did the animal carvings represent? And most importantly, what stage of human development does Göbekli Tepe truly represent? One thing is certain: Göbekli Tepe forced us to rethink the order of human history. Maybe the foundation of civilization was not only bread, but also shared beliefs, shared symbols, and the need to gather together. And maybe the beginning of history was far more complicated than we once thought. If you think the prehistoric world was far more mysterious than we were taught, don't forget to like the video and subscribe, because sometimes a single hill can rewrite the story of all humanity.